I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna go to my channel. Ta-da! It's taking a little bit here. Hey, look. I think we're on. Perfect. Okay.
I have YouTube loading.
All right. It is being broadcast, so we're here, and I'm going to bring up another copy of it so I can watch the chat because I'm not using the OBS today. Because I'm too tired to deal with that right now. So
I love that excuse. And it's
so
valid.
I'm doing what I know works. But I just want to make sure if we have anybody on here that I can see them answer some things. But I have to mute it. Okay. So anyway, welcome in to this broadcast of Space Weather Unplugged. uh we're gonna talk about the November 7th and 8th. Let me get my dates right. Um the really nice aurora that we saw, and we're gonna go over and try to figure out what happened with that because we knew there were some things in like brewing, but we didn't exactly know how intense it was going to be or any of that. And that ended up being quite a nice show. For not really being that big, it was quite photogenic. And so the first thing I want to bring up is um to do
We have
some
a very
couple.
important question, though.
What's a very important question?
Justin asks, how was Banff?
Oh, how was Banff? Banff was amazing. I love it up there. Sometimes I don't want to come home, but Canadians or the Canadian government or whatever, I don't think likes Americans too much, so we get thrown back to America. But that's fine. I'm good with it. Um, so I am going to share a couple pictures that were um submitted to Facebook of this event because I thought they were cool. And the first one is my friend Clayton that lives up in the UP, and he got this. I mean, it looks like a crown, which I
Yeah, it
think is
does.
quite
Check out those
cool.
arcs.
Yeah, I think that's right. Right. I forget which substorm this was. I think it was the second one, maybe the third one, where it just really exploded. And I think that's the one where you can see the auroral beads in it. And I know some people got pictures of them. I mean, it kind of looks like it in here, just a little bit after.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when you know it's going to go nuclear, which we all love so much. But yeah,
It's gonna break. It's gonna break.
he's got a really good piece of property up there where you can just look north over the water. I think it's pretty cool.
Pretty jealous.
And then this one's from Joanne Furton, and this is I can never say the pronounce the name of the city right, Menominee, Michigan. And it was right after sunset, and you can tell with the colors there, the twilight colors. Actually, when we first started seeing this in Banff, one of my favorite parts of it was during the twilight hours, because we also had moonlit clouds too that were really quite photogenic. And then kind of a off topic, funny little quip on this. So we had our little workshop group there, and it was like 2 hours before it gets dark. And I pull up the Isle Royal webcam. I'm like, hey, you guys, you want to see what's going on in Michigan right now? And they're like, no, because, we don't know if this is going to go, last another 2 hours, right? So it was kind of fun. I like to do that kind of stuff with people. Um, so they were happy that it held on. It held on and then some. So that's why we want to talk about what kind of happened here, because it did kind of go on for a little bit. And then one more. This is Glennis Wolf, cell phone shot. But there was a lot of like nice
That's bright for a cell
pinks.
phone shot.
Yeah, very pinks. Um, so yeah, it was just a very photogenic event. One of the workshop attendees, he asked me like how I would have rated it on a scale of 1 to 10. I was like, yeah, it's a solid 7. I give it a solid 7 because it was photogenic. It wasn't the most powerful thing I've ever seen, but it was really photogenic. So, yeah, that was my. So now we are going to talk about what happened with this and why it was so decent. So did I quit? Okay, I quit sharing, right? So we're back
Yeah,
to
you're not showing anything yet.
okay. So anyway, I can pass it over. I think we'll pass it over to Christian. Are we doing
For
you
current.
first? Oh
I can
yes.
go last in that case.
Oh yes, let's do that. Let's reverse it. We'll do current events last because that doesn't make sense. So let's go over what happened. I'm tired. I'm sorry.
It's
It's
okay.
funny because we had a little powwow before this, and I'm just totally like,
I mean, you just got back. I just got back from we're tired. Also, my cat just swiped a ladybug out of midair and knocked it down, so that was pretty cool to watch.
all right. So anyway, I guess I will reshare my screen and put the other slideshow up. So, okay. So what happened here? Let's do. So solar orbiter, I know we just talked about solar orbiter and how you can kind of use this as a tool in certain positions. And right now it is in the Sun Earth line or pretty close to it. So it can be used to kind of tell when something's coming. You can't use it to tell like how powerful something's going to be or if it'll even hit. I mean, because sometimes it could just it could still miss us, but it's a good indicator that something is going to show up. So that's kind of what we were doing here. We were looking for things in solar orbiter.
Which is quite the
But
opposite of what we our moral was a couple weeks ago when we were
yes,
saying do not use solar orbiter for this.
yeah, because
We're
it
like
was
talking a tiny couple degree alignment
yeah,
now.
yeah, because it was way off where you can't use it. But so we had quite a bit of flare. Like that one sunspot group was just all bark and no not much bite. But there I mean it had little things here and there and little poofs that kind of slipped out. But this is the GOES X-ray flux, and you could see that we had quite a bit here going on. Even it was X1, I think. Or was it? Yeah, it was a one, right? I don't
It
remember.
just hit R3, yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
X1's X.
Several M flares, several high level M flares. It just kept flaring and flaring and flaring, and everybody was being hopeful that it was gonna throw something at us, but everything was kind of either off center or nothing. But this is to kind of show you that it was pretty busy. They did a CME modeling, and you could see here that little tiny little tiny poof. Like the smidgest of glancing blows right there. And this was the ETA. So, and when Solar Orbiter saw it, which ended up translating, I think it was, we saw something in at L1 around, it was sunrise in Banff, so it was like 7:30, I think, around
That
that. So
sounds right.
it kind of lines up with when Solar Orbiter saw it, doing the time difference there. So let's we'll go on to why this is such a mess. This is a solar synoptic map, and I can never say that word properly either.
No.
Um, there were actually big data gaps in the coronagraphs between 11.6 and 11.7. So that is a problem in and of itself because if we don't have any pictures and something happened during that time, then we just didn't see it. That very well could have been what happened this past couple days. It very well could have been. But they did model a couple little CMEs, but honestly, I wouldn't put money on what hit us. Like it could be any multitude of things. We also had coronal holes going on. We have this guy right here, this guy here, and this southern one here. This tip here actually kind of clips that what they call the solar Earth strike zone. So between all this, we had a lot, anything from a CIR, the boundary between the fast and slow solar wind, that can enhance things. You can have the high speed stream itself, and then we have the different CMEs. Um, it just makes it a mess to really try to make heads or tails of anything. And they're all in the coronal hole timing was around the timing of the CMEs. So it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? We have a couple clues though. Solar Orbiter gave us a few clues with what they're equivalent to like the EPAM, which is the proton electron monitor. And then the data itself, where there was one flux rope we're pretty sure about. The other ones, and it's these diagonals here. Um, let's see if I use my mouse. That one,
Yeah, looks good.
that
Yep.
one. But we're only really certain on one of them. The other ones, I think, you know, not 100% sure on, but there's something there. So that kind of gives you in solar orbiter right now, it's about what 25 hours, give or take, based on the speed from when it hits here to when it hits L1. Um, so you can look at here and then figure like about a day later that you'll see something in the enhancement. But yeah, so it's helpful for that. Like we knew that something was coming, maybe. I don't want to say 100% sure because we all know nothing's 100% in this world, this wild, wild west.
Well,
Um,
that definitely reduced the forecast uncertainty, so to speak.
yeah,
So we were talking about, do we know if anything is coming? And from the modeling from that CME on the 4th and predicted hit to solar orbiters sometime around the 7th, that actually did show up. And
yeah,
it did show up with a fairly decent flux rope with some negative BZ. The rest of it is really a mystery. Something hit. We don't know where it came from. We don't know w- whether or not, well, it was clear that it was coming to us because it is sitting in the same line, very close to same line. It's sitting in the ecliptic plane. So it's seeing pretty much what we would see coming from the sun. It's about 6 degrees away, so it's currently east of that line. And it's closing fast where it's going to be pretty much in the same shot. So we clearly saw something, and there is a good chance that it's coming to us. Those CMEs are fairly big structures. So when you get to 6 degrees, it's going to be very hard to miss,
Yeah.
almost impossible. If it's hitting solar orbiter, it's going to hit Earth. As far
okay,
as how things
yeah,
go, oh, that's anybody's guess, particularly when you're dealing with multiple events. So when you have two coronal holes that are kind of, one is centrally located, one is probably flanking a CME, that may push CME in all sorts of different direction. It can deflect it. And it can deflect it to the point where a central CME next to coronal hole will look like it's coming from the limb.
yeah,
So, and it's really difficult to model. So putting that in one model, particularly when you don't know what you need to put in the model, because we have coronagraph map gaps that are really not showing anything. So what exactly hit solar orbiter? We have some certainty that the CME from the 4th arrived. The rest of it, something hit it, and something was clearly heading our way with
yeah,
some negative BZ. How that's going to translate into arrival time on Earth, how it's going to translate into a flux rope on Earth, we don't know. We know something's coming. What it's going to arrive like, because there is still a lot of space to cover and there is a lot of traffic in between with a lot of strong magnetic fields from those two coronal holes. So what it's going to do to the flux rope, your guess is as good as
Anybody's
mine.
guess.
yeah.
Yep.
And
So
But
definitely
that's
not
L1 had
mine.
an answer. L1 had an answer.
oh yes.
I
So
gotta say, once
anyway,
we hit the second complex event, I pretty much start shutting down and going, it's something.
yeah, it was
It's that's yep. It
because
could be a
it
CME, it could be a CME with a CIR, it could be the CIR first and the CME after.
yeah, and we just really don't know. We just like that's what I was telling people when we were out there. It's like, well, something hit because it obviously boosted it, but which was good because we got more time out of it because we were thinking it was just going to fade off. Um,
It really benefited the rest of the world. I mean, I know
yeah,
the show went on for a couple days.
so it was pretty nice to say the least. I guess
Yeah.
my last little slide here is the actual solar wind data from that, and you can see this was the flux rope here that we're pretty certain was on the northwest south. So we had the good decent south component here that drove a lot of activity. But as you can see, it gets messy. It gets very messy after that. We had a nice long stretch of negative BZ here. And then we even to well this yeah, today, like
Today's been going straight, and that's what
it's been
NASA's
going
or
straight.
NOAA's been calling the coronal hole stream,
Yeah, yeah. So
which makes
NOAA,
sense.
whoopsie, yeah, they're definitely they went with coronal hole on this. That's what's going on right now.
Do we
But
want to try to decipher the density bumps? Kidding. I'm kidding. We're not doing
you can do that.
that. I don't have a death wish at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
that's, bump, 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 bump. I mean, it's almost a song, I would
yeah.
say, musically,
I
maybe.
don't want to touch that, but basically, I just wanted to point out this is the one that we're fairly certain on, and that was in solar orbiter and here.
Yep.
But the rest of it, because you don't, if you go back a slide, you look because you see it's got like very big, clear kind of signatures, but you get to the actual real-time solar wind data and it like flattens out. You're like, okay, well, what is that? Don't really know. That's where it gets really, really messy and like it could be that interactions that we don't quite have a handle on as to exactly what went on here. But the point is we got some really good aurora out of it, a couple days worth. So yeah, I'll be happy about it.
Yeah,
Even
especially when
though
Yeah,
you get to be in a gorgeous place like Canada.
I know, I know.
absolutely. And
Alberta, for everybody that was worried, not Manitoba.
Yeah, not not
I
I know where that went.
mean, we like predictability. We like clean events because it gives us an idea of what's going to happen in the next few hours. When you see a flux rope that's clearly rotating, and you know that southern field will stay for a while, or it will rotate out, you can plan ahead. But when you start to develop those really strange structures where it's just flat magnetic field pretty much across, it's not moving, you really don't know. You're kind of at mercy of BZ at that point if it's going to flip and actually cause the substorm or it's going to go on for hours and hours and hours. Well, you
Just
get
depends.
Aurora out of it, but you kind of sit there and think, well, is it over? Or
Is it
do
going
I
to
have
continue?
another substorm out of it? Yeah, that's kind of unsettled feeling. But I mean, this is where we at. We
Yeah,
can't really predict those
Welcome to
things,
the
even if we
downhill
have
solar
another.
max.
Yeah, even if we don't, if we have something sitting between us and between L1 and Sun, that's going to reduce uncertainty to a certain degree again.
right.
And it's going to be helpful. Let's face it, it's going to be very helpful for industry. If they see a huge negative BZ in solar orbiter in that position, or if there's another spacecraft in that position and they know it's coming, that's a great warning for them. Not so much for aurora chasing, because we still don't know when it's coming. We still don't know in what shape it's going to show up and when,
Yeah.
how it's going to evolve. So that's where we at.
And yes, so
Yeah,
yeah, it was a fun one. And then the other weird, it was a lot of weirdness on the 7th too, because we got some strange aurora up there that I was like, how is this happening?
marginal positive BZ
Yeah,
SMC.
it was very strange. So the last this whole last week has just been interesting, in terms of just trying to look at the solar wind data. And actually that night was really funny. I'll just tell this story real quick too, because me and Rachel, my great friend Rachel, we decided to go up to this place called Windy Point, which is like 20 kilometers north of where we were shooting, because that's where you pick up cell service, to check data, check aurora data. And I was looking at, I'm like, oh, this is all sad. It's like, there's nothing, the magnetometers weren't really even doing anything. So we go out, drive all the way back, and her co-leader, Matt, gets on the little radio. And mind you, this guy likes to joke all the time with me. He gave me a hard time this whole week in a good way. So he radios, he goes, hey, we're down here shooting aurora. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, you're not. And then so Rachel gets back on the radio and she's like, I'm gonna finish my sandwich first. Just totally like blowing him off. And then one of the attendees come up and he has a remote operating his camera and he shows what's on his camera. I'm like, shut up. It's like so then I'm
That's
like,
not
I'm gonna go
possible what we
investigate
have.
now. I was like, what is this? I'm like, none of this shows that this should be going on right now. It was kind of funny, but it was really strange because it barely moved. It was it was like super slow motion. It was just like like almost recovery phase, with like the patches. But it was very bizarre. One of the weirdest aurora experiences I've had because none of it made sense to me. So that just goes to show you how the magnetosphere responds in different ways to different things, and we're trying to get more of an understanding on this stuff. Um, but yeah, it took me for a surprise. And okay, but that's my story, so I can pass it along to whoever wants to go next.
Let's look at the sun, and particularly the at Colonel holes I really liked looking at here. This is going back to the 8th, so we're talking a couple days ago, so anything we're seeing now would be an influence of that, which would be the southern kernel hole down here. Not too big or pointy or anything, so it's not a huge deal, but up here, I'm liking the shape of how this is turning out. It's kind of a mix between the northern kernel hole, or a northern kernel hole, rather, I shouldn't say the, because it's starting to open up here as well. We're getting some signs of a north pole kernel hole again. Little sign of something to come, I think. Nice filament here as well, and then some prominences down here. I love looking at 211. You can just see everything.
That
But the
filament
idea is
is
these are
pretty
the kernel
wild.
holes. Yeah, this one here, this little
Yeah.
slinky little
Uh,
poof. Look at that in 304.
Yeah, that's look at it. That if that one lets go.
Yeah, we're looking good, but it looks and honestly has been pretty
Yeah.
stable. The giant snake ones generally I don't see
Mm,
launch very well or often. They're pretty stable as far as their situation goes. So this is the current hole we'll be expecting in about a day or two. It's probably going to be an influence over the next 5 or 6 days. It's going to be a mix between just the higher density, the lower edge of the CIR meeting with the high speed stream. So I'm expecting more high speed at first, and then it's slowly just waning. The good news there is generally that's usually a higher magnetic strength spot, so I would expect at least an elevated BT level for a few days. That's my guess, at least coming with this one. As far as sunspots are concerned, we are seeing still this, I believe it was the southern region, if someone wants to point it out.
I think it is.
Mhm.
I mean, this is the
Yeah.
most complex group on there, so I
Right.
can't imagine it's
Is that
not, but
the one that your mouse cursor was almost on? That's the one that gave us the what was it, M9 today? And then another M4.5 or
for
whatever.
some reason, data on this is not loading past 1500 today, so I've missed a few. But yeah, there's been a few big flares from this. Like, oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
Going from the leading region. That's interesting there. Which means there's probably some flux development in delta regions, if I had to guess. Oh yeah, this whole area here.
Looks pretty angry.
And it's still getting more potential too. If we get more growth up here or anywhere in between here, then we could start seeing some nice, hopeful eruptions. But as we've seen so far, these get flare happy and then they subside. So my hopes are not extreme. But if you have solar glasses still, to my knowledge, the big one here on the side and then this is visible. So if you can go outside and look at the sun and see these sunspots, it's a cool thing to do. Or even take pictures of them through them. That's another cool thing to do. Don't look at it though while you're not doing the glasses. And then in terms of flares, again, it's been pretty noisy. I won't let the whole thing play necessarily because it would take far too long, but let's go at 60 frames per second for fun. And just over the last 48 hours, it's still a very solar max type sun, but all the activity is in the southern hemisphere, which makes sense because the northern hemisphere is far more developed through the cycle, which means it's a little bit quieter at this point. You can really see a lot of the flare movement too through the actual filaments themselves,
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that. Kind
especially
of
when it's in hypermotion.
it's
We're
mesmerizing.
moving at about, let's see, an hour a second,
Neato.
which is
Yeah,
cool because most flares take about an hour anyway.
it's like lightning bolts.
And then I know we kind of covered live solar wind, but I guess if we want to look at like literally right now, live solar wind,
Yeah.
oh, I'm already zoomed in, so I'll have to zoom back out and zoom in. Boop. Not expecting too terribly much, especially with the IMF dropping so quickly. Solar wind speeds are still down. In fact, I was honestly, I don't know about you guys, but surprised when NOAA put out the we're expecting G2 alerts to continuously come throughout the day.
Oh
I
yeah.
was
Yeah.
honestly surprised to see that K6 warning come out. But I was like, okay, at this rate, it's crashing. Why? Like, that's not going to happen very much. So as of right now, I wouldn't expect too much through the North American night. -5, we're probably going to have at least a few substorms pop up throughout the next 3 to 5 or hours or so, 3, 6. But if we don't get any sort of either enhancement in the IMF or BZ being not zero, which on that note, yeah, we've got a higher BX component too. So I'm assuming this is the end of that last kernel hole. But the idea is I wouldn't expect too terribly much except for high latitude stuff mostly. Middle latitudes sleep tonight. And that's my report.
That's our report. Sticking to it. Yeah,
Yep.
I was gonna make a comment to Brower AB because he said he was surprised there's so much Aurora given there was no noticeable cause. And I kind of like I was kind of surprised by this too because like if you look at the stats, it didn't really even reach G1 for a long time. It took it a long time to get to that
No.
level. But yeah, what we were seeing was extremely like quite photogenic and like with all these the pillars and the motion and everything. Like in Alberta, it was almost overhead. It wasn't didn't quite make it all the way over, but it was close.
We are
And
talking the night of the 8th, right?
yes, yes, the 8th and the ninth.
So
But
Friday night into Saturday morning.
yeah, and it was just like it just kind of hovered around that threshold of G1, but I think it tipped over once or twice. Let me see if I can bring up
I
H.
mean, I didn't see anything above I don't think I saw even a KP4. Well, I saw KP4s, but
Let me
I
find
did
it.
see the Aurora down to my latitude. Granted, it was just on the horizon, but around 10, 30, 11, actually the 11 o'clock one, there was Aurora sightings, photographic sightings in at least central Ohio. And I know it stretched further than that as well to
Yeah,
at least longitudinally.
I got some really good
So
stuff.
like not at all aligned with the whole you need a KP7 to see it on the horizon where I'm at.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of
It
the
Catch
was
substorm.
it was sighted in Northern California. That
Yep.
substorm actually popped all the way to Northern California
Was that the
because
late night one though, or was that the 11 o'clock
um
one?
oh,
Because there
that
was a
is a good
one that
question.
even
There
stronger
was
afterwards.
Yep, there
It
was
was like
one
6 a.m.
stronger.
my time.
Oh.
like
So
No, I think
11
that's
UTC.
no, I think that was earlier, so I'll have
Oh,
to check the
really?
data, but
Okay.
it definitely was going. And all of it was coming from just persistent negative BZ. So you
yeah,
don't really need that strong of a driver. But if you keep going with a negative BZ, it's going to get you somewhere. It's going to get you a pretty powerful substorm. And you may not get to the storm level even. You're not going to get to G1. You don't have to get to G1 to see a nice substorm
yeah, and
This is
and
why
good
substorm chasing
visibility.
is so much better.
this was a
Yay!
great example of that. So I pulled up the HP 30 charts. This is like the higher cadence KP for lack
Yeah,
of
it
a
looks like
term.
four.
Um,
No,
so
no
this was
fives.
early on. So we got four, a little bit over four. If you go to the next day, so this would be the ninth, um,
Oh, there we go.
it did pop in the G1. And because what I thought was interesting here was these intervals. It was like almost on like what 3 hour intervals. It
Mm-hmm.
would get like something, it would calm down. But then something else boosted it. And then we got
And it was more
pretty
consistently higher.
pretty more consistently higher. But yeah,
Ooh,
it
5.6 there.
never really got that strong. It
They
did,
should put the KP values on top for the 3 hour values
yeah, just for the heck of
so we
it.
can see the average for just visually. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guarantee like all the like this got I guarantee all these fives got smoothed out. Like
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it never really reached it. But yeah, it's so that's just kind of like a good little telltale like as to why um knowing more about how substorms function and things like that is more helpful in real-time chasing than KP will ever be. 'Cause yeah, it just this wasn't that particularly strong, but it was really nice. So
And
yeah,
on that note, seeing them or helping out for the Ohio group so much and being able to watch this data now, the KP alerts will always go out after the peak of the substorm has already ended. So you've got, of course, the waning phase where it's still colorful, it's still out, but it's not quite as vibrant as it was, and it's not quite as defined as it was. So you wait for that alert, and that's what you're getting. You're not getting the peak of it where the magnetometers will tell you that immediately, or just watching the forums and having other people. Visual sightings are always number one. Magnetometers are number two.
that's right. But anyway, oh yeah, I guess I'll note that too because you put it in the chat. It's like the only thing that's kind of a bummer for this week for us down in the middle latitudes is we are in full moon week. So that's going to be a bit of a drag. When we don't have anything really powerful to push it. Um, we'll see what happens with the corona holes, but I'm not holding my breath too much on it. I mean, you might be able to get some stuff out of camera, like camera visibility, but in terms of eyesight visibility, like to be honest, when we were out there Friday night, I couldn't really see any of that aurora until the moon really started to set, and then you could start seeing it. But the camera picked up all sorts of it. And that was 48% moon, I think. So
Hmm.
you really start to lose that visual threshold unless it's something quite powerful. At least in these latitudes, it when you start getting into the Arctic regions, it's a totally different story. But
It's irrelevant.
yeah, yeah, it just makes things very interesting with the full moon aurora up there. But down here it's a thing. So keep that in mind when when you're out there, if you go out this week, that the full moon or basically
Moonlight sucks. That's the
yeah.
moral.
So anyway, that's our little chit chat for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Unless anybody's got some more commentary, but I will call it at that if you guys are good with it.
I am
So,
good with that as well.
Yep.
okay. Well, thanks for joining. I wanted to do an impromptu one because I've been out of town, so I wanted to get one of these in because we want to keep them regular. But we'll come up with a topic for this week. Maybe we'll go back to something more researchy. I know we talked about a couple things, so we'll see what
Or
we
the
come.
sun will interrupt us.
Yeah, or the sun will interrupt us again, like it has been doing so regularly lately. You know. All
50-50
right.
chance, I'd say.
Yeah. On that note, guys, thanks for joining. We will talk to you later this week, probably. Maybe we'll go back to Friday or something like that, or Saturday. But we'll figure it
For
out
me,
and post. So, yay. Well, good night,
everybody.
everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.